For weeks, Megan would come home exhausted, consumed by strategies to outdo her colleague at work. Initially, her determination burned fiercely, but over time, the spark began to fade. One evening, she casually mentioned that she and her coworker, Alex, had started collaborating on key projects as they neared the deadline for a major client. I couldn't shake a nagging feeling that something more than work might be going on between them. Megan tried to reassure me whenever I brought it up, but doubts lingered, growing louder with every unanswered question. One day, while on a business trip, I decided to surprise her. After landing, I grabbed my bag from the overhead bin, already planning how to make the evening special. The taxi driver, a chatty local, recommended a cozy, dimly lit restaurant nearby. It sounded perfect, so after a quick check-in at my hotel, I cleaned up, changed, and headed to Megan's hotel. When I arrived at the reception desk, the clerk smiled warmly. "Hi," I said. "I'm Ethan Carter. Could you check if my wife, Megan Carter, is in her room? I'd like to surprise her." The clerk glanced at her records, then dialed a number. After a moment, she shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" I forced a smile to mask my disappointment. "No, thank you. I was hoping to catch her off guard. Tomorrow's our anniversary. Could you keep this quiet?" She nodded, returning my smile. "Of course. I hope you both have a wonderful day tomorrow." Leaving the desk, I scanned the bustling hotel lobby, hoping for a glimpse of Megan. A faint laugh caught my attention, one that sounded all too familiar. My heart raced as I followed the sound toward a nearby lounge. My steps slowed as I approached the booths, cautious not to draw attention to myself. There she was, sitting across from Alex, laughing at something he'd said. She looked radiant, her energy and warmth directed entirely at him. As I stood frozen, Alex leaned closer. Then, to my disbelief, Megan tilted her head, meeting him halfway. They kissed. The shock hit me like a tidal wave. I turned and walked away, struggling to keep my composure. Outside, the cool evening air did little to soothe the storm raging inside me. I followed at a distance as Megan and Alex left the lounge, her hand resting comfortably on his arm. Their closeness was undeniable. They strolled down the street, talking and laughing, eventually entering the very restaurant the taxi driver had recommended to me earlier. I paused outside the restaurant, unsure of what to do. My heart screamed for confrontation, but my head told me to hold back, to gather my thoughts before taking action. Summoning every ounce of restraint, I stepped inside and positioned myself at a small table in the corner, just close enough to overhear their conversation without being noticed. A waitress approached. "What can I get for you, sir?" she asked with a friendly smile. "Double scotch on the rocks," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. As she walked away, I focused on the couple across the room. Alex's voice was low and smooth. "We've got the whole night," he said. "Tomorrow's meeting isn't until late morning." Megan laughed softly. "Good. I was worried you'd try to push me to leave early. Missing our 2-month anniversary would have been such a shame." 2 months. The words landed like a punch to the gut. My mind reeled. How long had this been going on? Alex leaned closer, his voice dripping with charm. "It could have been longer if you'd said yes that first week." Megan smiled coyly. "I had to keep up appearances, you know. Married woman and all that." Their glasses clinked in a celebratory toast. "To 2 amazing months," Alex said, "and to many more ahead." My drink arrived, interrupting my thoughts. The waitress placed it on the table with a polite nod. "Anything else?" "No," I replied, handing her a $10 bill. "Thank you." I sipped my scotch, watching them with growing resentment. When Megan laughed again, I couldn't hold back any longer. I stood and approached their table. Both looked up as I spoke, my voice cutting through the hum of the restaurant. "Well, aren't you two a picture-perfect couple?" I said, my tone sharp and biting. "This would make one hell of a postcard." Megan's face drained of color. "Ethan," she stammered. I smiled bitterly. "That's right. It's me. Your husband. Or should I say, your former husband-to-be." 2 months, huh? Congratulations on your little anniversary. Her companion Alex started to speak, but I silenced him with a glare. Save it, I said coldly. You'll want to enjoy this moment while it lasts. Megan, I hope he's everything you dreamed of. As for your things, let me know where to send them. It's best you stay far away from my house. I reached into my pocket, pulled off my wedding ring, and tossed it onto the table. It clinked against the glass before landing in front of Megan. Here's a little gift to celebrate, I added before turning on my heel and walking out. Before you find out what happens next, please subscribe to the channel. As I stepped out into the cool night air, my mind raced with anger, pain, and disbelief. I walked aimlessly for a while, trying to process what had just happened. The image of Megan and Alex, so comfortable together, replayed in my mind like a cruel loop. Eventually, I made my way back to my hotel, each step heavy with the weight of finality. The receptionist greeted me with a polite smile, but I barely registered it. Could you give me the number for a taxi to the airport? I asked curtly. Of course, sir, she replied. Will you need assistance with your bags? No, thank you, I said, forcing a thin smile. I'll handle it myself. In my room, I threw my belongings into my suitcase without care for neatness. Every motion felt mechanical, as if my body were moving on autopilot while my mind churned over what I'd witnessed. Megan's laughter, her words, her kiss, they played over and over, each memory cutting deeper than the last. I checked out of the hotel and took the next flight home. The quiet hum of the plane offered no solace. By the time I landed, exhaustion had dulled the sharp edges of my emotions, but the weight of betrayal still sat heavily in my chest. The drive back to the house was a blur, the familiar streets passing like forgotten scenery. When I stepped inside, the silence was deafening. The home we had built together now felt cold and empty, stripped of the warmth it once held. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, until I finally forced myself to move. Megan's things couldn't stay here, not after what I'd seen. I spent the next few hours methodically packing her belongings. Each item felt like another wound, a reminder of what I thought we had and what she had thrown away. Clothes, jewelry, photos. I boxed them all up, determined to erase her presence from the house. By morning, the car was loaded. I drove to her mother's house where I knew she would eventually end up. Diana, her mother, answered the door, her face etched with concern. Ethan, she began cautiously, what's going on? Why are you bringing all this here? I met her gaze, my voice steady but cold. Megan will need her things. I thought it best they weren't at my house anymore. Diana's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Megan's working. She's out of town. No, I said bluntly. She's not. I saw her last night, Diana, celebrating her 2-month anniversary with another man. Her face paled. You must be mistaken. Megan would never... Stop, I interrupted. I saw them. I heard them. She lied to me, and now she's your problem. Tell her to stay away from me and my house. We're done. I didn't wait for her reply. I dropped the boxes on the porch, got back in my car, and drove away without a backward glance. A week later, the divorce papers were ready. I signed them with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Megan tried calling once or twice, but I ignored her. There was nothing left to say. 3 months passed, and life slowly began to stabilize. My days became filled with work, hobbies, and rebuilding the sense of self-worth her betrayal had stripped away. Then, one day, I received a call from an unexpected source. Megan's father, Howard. I don't know if I should be telling you this, Howard began, his voice hesitant. But Megan, well, she asked that guy to leave his wife and marry her. And? I asked, already suspecting the answer. Howard sighed heavily. He refused. Told her he wasn't interested in anything serious. She's back living with her mother now, trying to pick up the pieces. The news stirred no sympathy in me. Thanks for letting me know, I said simply, ending the call. Megan's life unraveled further. She struggled to hold down a job, and her romantic escapades became a series of dead ends, most involving married men, or those who had no real interest in her beyond a brief fling. Eventually, The weight of her choices caught up with her, leaving her emotionally drained and in therapy. As for me, I thrived. Moving on wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I found strength in building a future that was mine alone, unburdened by deceit. What Megan had destroyed, I rebuilt, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. Months after our separation, I began to feel the first taste of peace. Life was quieter, simpler, and free from the chaos Megan had brought into it. Yet, just as I started to settle into this new chapter, she reached out. The first time, it was an email. "Ethan," it began, "I know I don't deserve to ask anything of you, but please, can we talk? Just once. I need to apologize, to explain. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." I stared at the screen, her words stirring something between anger and pity. What was there to say? Her actions had spoken louder than any apology ever could. I deleted the email without replying. Then the texts began. At first, they were short and hesitant. "I'm so sorry. Please, Ethan, just one conversation." When I didn't respond, they became longer, pleading. "You don't have to forgive me. I just want you to hear me out. I can't believe how much I've hurt you. I'll never forgive myself. Please, Ethan." But I did not reply. I did. A week later, she called. Seeing her name flash on my phone sent a surge of resentment through me, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered, my voice cold and steady. "What do you want, Megan?" There was a long pause on the other end, as if she hadn't expected me to pick up. When she spoke, her voice was shaky, almost broken. I just needed to hear your voice. I know you probably hate me, Ethan, but I'm sorry for everything." I said nothing, letting her words hang in the silence. "I know I ruined everything," she continued, her voice trembling. "I wasn't thinking. I was selfish, reckless, and I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. You." "Megan," I said finally, my tone sharp, "you don't get to rewrite the past. You made your choices. I'm done being a part of your guilt." "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking, "just one chance to fix this. I'll do anything. I love you, Ethan. I never stopped loving you." I laughed bitterly. "You loved me? Is that what you call it? Sneaking around for months, lying to my face, kissing another man in public while I was planning a surprise anniversary for you? That's not love, Megan. That's betrayal." Her breath hitched, and for a moment she didn't respond. When she finally spoke, her words were rushed, desperate. "I was stupid. I was lost. But I see it now. What I've done. What I've lost. You were my everything, Ethan. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you let me." "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to erase what you did. Apologies don't undo the lies, the deceit. You want me to forgive you because it'll make you feel better, not because you've earned it." Her voice broke completely then, dissolving into sobs. "I know I don't deserve you," she managed between gasps. "But please, don't shut me out forever. I'll wait as long as it takes." "You don't need to wait," I said coldly. "It's over. Move on, Megan. I have." I ended the call and sat in the quiet that followed, my heart heavier than I cared to admit. Hearing her so broken stirred memories of the life we once shared, of the person I thought she was. But I couldn't go back, not to her, not to the lies, not to the pain. A month later, Megan showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door to find her standing there, clutching a small box. She looked different, thinner, tired, her eyes red as if she hadn't slept in days. "Ethan," she said softly, "please, just give me 5 minutes." I considered slamming the door in her face, but stepped aside instead. She followed me into the living room, setting the box down on the table. "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I've been working on myself," she said quickly. "I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I sabotaged us, why I made the worst mistake of my life." She opened the box to reveal a stack of old photographs, cards, and mementos from our life together. "I've been holding on to these," she said, "because they remind me of what we had, what I ruined. I know I can't make you take me back, but I want you to know that I'll never stop trying to be better." I looked at the photos, smiling faces, happy moments that now felt like they belonged to someone else. "Why are you doing this, Megan?" I asked quietly. "What do you expect me to say? That I'll forgive you and we'll go back to how things were?" "No," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I just want you to know I'm sorry, and that I'll never stop loving you." For a moment the room was silent. I could see how much she was hurting, but I couldn't ignore the scars she had left on me. "Megan," I said finally, my voice steady, "I'm glad you're working on yourself, but this doesn't change anything. I'm not the man you loved anymore, and you're not the woman I thought you were. We can't go back." Her shoulders slumped and she nodded, tears falling freely now. "I understand," she whispered. I needed you to know." I walked her to the door, watching as she disappeared into the night. Part of me felt a pang of sadness, but I knew I had made the right choice. Some things, once broken, can never truly be fixed. A few weeks after Megan's last attempt to reconcile, life was finally beginning to stabilize. Then, one afternoon, Alex appeared at my doorstep, his presence an unwelcome reminder of everything I was trying to leave behind. The knock was aggressive, demanding. When I opened the door, Alex stood there, looking furious and unkempt. "We need to talk," he snapped, stepping forward as if he had any right to invade my space. I blocked his path, my voice cold and sharp. "What the hell do you want?" His eyes burned with anger. "You and Megan," he spat. "You've ruined my life." I frowned, bewildered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm sick," he shouted. "And it's your fault. Or hers. Maybe both of you." It took a moment for his words to sink in. "What?" I asked, my voice steady but tense. "I tested positive for an STD, he hissed. "And I know she got it from you." The accusation hit me like a slap, not because it held any truth, but because of its audacity. "You're insane," I said, my voice rising. "Megan and I haven't been together in months, and even when we were, I've never—" I stopped, too disgusted to continue. "If you're sick, Alex, it's because of someone else." His expression twisted into one of fury and desperation. "Don't lie to me. You think you're better than me, don't you? All high and mighty. But this is proof you're no better." I stepped forward, my voice low and menacing. "Let me make this very clear. I don't owe you an explanation, and I definitely don't owe you anything else. You don't belong here, Alex. Leave before I make you." He didn't move, his fists clenched at his sides. "Not until you take some responsibility," he growled. "You and Megan both. Get tested. Prove you're clean." I stared at him, torn between slamming the door in his face and taking the test just to shut him up. The sheer nerve of his demands was infuriating, but part of me wanted the satisfaction of proving him wrong. "Fine," I said finally. "But when it turns out I'm clean, you'd better pray I don't decide to take this to the police. Harassment isn't a good look for you." The next week was tense. I scheduled the test and avoided Megan entirely, wanting to keep the fallout from her poor decisions at a distance. The results came back quickly. I was clean. A surge of relief washed over me, mixed with frustration that Alex had forced me into this situation. A few days later, I heard from Megan. She had apparently been contacted by Alex as well, and had undergone testing of her own. Her results, like mine, confirmed she was healthy. Alex's accusations crumbled under the weight of the truth. Any power he thought he held over me, or Megan, was gone. Determined to confront Alex one last time, I found him outside his work building. He barely had time to react before I stepped in front of him, my voice cold as steel. "We're done, Alex. I'm clean. Megan's clean. If you're sick, it's your fault. Don't come near me, or her, again." He tried to interrupt, but I didn't let him. "And if I so much as see you on my property again, I'm going straight to the police. Do you understand me?" For the first time, Alex looked uncertain. He muttered something under his breath before turning and walking away, his shoulders hunched. Watching him retreat, I felt a sense of finality. Whatever chaos he had brought into my life was over. A week later, Megan reached out again. This time it wasn't to apologize. It was to reflect. We met at a cafe, a neutral ground where emotions could stay controlled. "I want to thank you," she said quietly, staring at her coffee, "for making me take the test. It opened my eyes to how careless I was. If I'd stayed with Alex, who knows what could have happened?" I nodded, not saying anything. "I hate myself for what I did to you, Ethan," she continued, her voice breaking. "And I hate that I didn't see Alex for what he was until it was too late. You were right about him. He's a liar and a coward. I threw away everything good in my life for someone who didn't care about me." Her tears were genuine, but they didn't move me the way they once might have. "Megan," I said finally, my tone calm but firm, "I forgive you. But this doesn't change anything between us. We're done. You need to move on, and so do I." She nodded, her shoulders slumping. "I understand," she whispered. "I just wish I could take it all back." "You can't," I said, standing. "But you can learn from it." "Goodbye, Megan." I walked away, leaving her at the table. For the first time, I felt truly free. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to shape. Whatever came next, I knew I would face it stronger than ever. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.